begin with Dr. Raywat Deonandan. He is a global health epidemiologist, associate professor with the Interdisciplinary School of Health Sciences at the University of Ottawa. Doctor, thank you so very much for joining us again here on 680 CJOB. When I mentioned those top-line numbers and ask you to compare it to other provinces, and I look at some of the data, we're second only to Quebec when it comes to some of the test positivity rates and cases per capita.
Yeah, it's a little shocking, to be honest. Now, the test positivity rate is one that I look at quite closely, and it's, it varies with the testing strategy and the quality of testing being done. So we have to make sure that we have to couch discussions of that statistic with a caveat.
Explain that for us.
Well, the more you test, you may find more milder cases. You may find fewer people who test positive, and so the numbers go down. So if you're testing less and only testing highly symptomatic people, the test positivity rate will go up. That doesn't necessarily mean that the disease is more serious. However, if you haven't changed your testing regimen and the TPR is going up, it suggests that the disease is penetrating more deeply into the community. So in general, if the number is, more than 5%, you're not testing enough. But because you're under 5, a high number still, it tells me that it is running rampant in some communities, penetrations. So it's one of those, touching metrics has to be.
Now, you cut out there for just a moment, but you said running rampant. Explain that one more time there.
Yeah, it means that the penetration is deep in the community. Right. So we like to have the TPR around 1% or less. That means we're capturing most of the cases that were detected, that we're trying to detect. 4% tells me that we're missing a large number of cases that are in the community. So it means that community transmission is heavy, and probably need to do better or more contact tracing, and at least in the short run, really clamping down on transmission using the tools that we have, like distancing and mask wearing and closing things. So on the plus side, it's not as bad as some other parts of the world. I know that's that's some damn praise there, but it tells us we've got time to control it before it gets that bad.
We did have for so very long that test positivity rate at or even below 1%, 4.4 across the province. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been even higher than that in Winnipeg. So I'd suggest it's probably close to 5, if not over 5 in Winnipeg. We don't know that for sure. It was 4.4 in Winnipeg yesterday, and we've had another over 100 cases in the city added to the tally. So... And as of yesterday, our top doctor said that community-based transmission in the last week is sitting at about 20% of the cases. Is that more concerning to you? Because it is to me when you have, 2 in 10 cases where you just don't know how these people are getting it.
Yeah, and it also speaks to the failure of the contact tracing regimen. Because these aren't magical cases that drop down from outer space. They actually, were transmitted in the community. It's just that we don't have the wherewithal to track them, or people aren't remembering where they've been and so forth. So again, the app would help some of this. What would help more if people just did not interact as much. I know that's easy for me to say because people have lives to live, and for the most part across the country, people are doing their part. It's just a handful of individuals are being a little more flagrant. It doesn't take much to trigger an outbreak, right? This highly infectious disease. But this is where we are. And I don't want to say the genie's out of the bottle, because it isn't. This is still containable. It just takes an additional amount of effort over the next few weeks and possibly months to get it down to a manageable caseload again.
Now, the effort involved here in Ontario has really shut a lot of businesses down. Here we have reduced hours at bars and restaurants. Can you accomplish what you need to accomplish within the given restrictions, and really relying on people to reduce their bubbles, wear their masks, and really have as little contact with others as possible?
That is the goal. And in a liberal
democracy,
that's the
goal, but can you do it?
Yeah. Well, that's a question for the political scientists. Now, the test positivity rate fills me with some trepidation here. In some parts of the continent, 3% is the trigger for closing down businesses, right? And you're well above 4%. So simply restricting access to certain opportunities may be insufficient. What we need is people to just be on board with just, self-restraint. Unfortunately, it comes down, this is not magical, it's not mystical here. It's, this disease comes from people and people interacting. and we need to interact less. Now, there is a component of this that is out of our control, like the aerosol transmission. If you go into, an indoor environment with every intention of following guidelines, there's still going to be an element of that we cannot control. But to the extent that we can control it, we have to control it. And in a liberal democracy, that means everybody has to do their part and to shoulder the responsibility.
It seems to me that wave 2 has been way worse than wave 1. Is there a reason for that? Is it because we were more locked down during the first wave than what we are now?
Historically, almost every pandemic has a second wave that is worse than the first. And the number of reasons for that, the thing this time around is because, the first time around, things were closed. Schools were closed. Businesses were closed. Things were getting warmer. We expanded capacity in hospitals. So, there was the ability to absorb cases. Now everything's open. Businesses are open. Schools are open. Things are getting colder. So we're spending more time indoors and spreading it that way. But also the flu season is upon us. So the threat is more dire now, even though there's probably fewer cases now than before because, despite the climbing cases being more steep, it's actually probably the number are less. We're testing more, so we're finding more cases. But the capacity to absorb those cases is less now. Now, I'm going to eat those words because with the rate of climb, it's possible the second wave will have more cases than the first time around. It's entirely possible, if not likely. But right now, we can prevent that from happening. We're still at that stage where we can prevent it from happening.
Well, let's cross our fingers and I guess do our part to make that happen. Dr. Raywat Deonandan, our house epidemiologist, joining us from Ottawa.